So in this video, I'll talk to you about time management and project design, specifically how qualitative methods, at least the most popular qualitative method, individual interviews, are costly when it comes to time.
I'm mapping basic topics of conversation.
Completely different pictures.
So, in the last video, I talked to you about those key differences between qualitative methods, I mean big Q qualitative methods, and then we talked about the problems of planning a qualitative research project in terms of getting funding and ethics approval, because it's an inductive process of inquiry, and that means at the time you start the project, you don't always know what it is you need to ask and who you need to ask. The other problem is also to do with time. Qualitative research is a time vampire. These projects can be very, very costly in terms of time. And this is tied to one of those key methods of qualitative research, the interview, the most popular method. Now, a good interview, one that goes in depth into the research question, typically lasts around an hour. That's a sign of a good interview. It lasts around about an hour. And that's just with one participant. And you also need to factor in the time it takes to find the person, what we call sampling, contacting the person, arranging a time and place for the interview, traveling to the interview, traveling back from the interview. That's because we don't really expect people to come to us. They're helping us out. So usually we go to them. So all of that time has to be factored in. So a 1 hour interview might actually take 2 or 3 hours to complete. If you have 20 participants, that's 40 to 60 hours right there. And remember, those are hours that you're costing in to a funding proposal. Now, if you were employing a research assistant, one of the cheapest forms of paid research workers that we have, they typically costed in at around 60 Australian dollars per hour. That they don't get paid all of that. That goes to overheads and so on as well. But it's about $60, varies between institutions and qualification of the worker. But if we stick with the $60, Australian dollars, when I say dollars, I'm talking Australian dollars. Yeah, I hope you know. So that's 3,600 Australian dollars to get someone to do those interviews. Now, that's not too bad. But wait for the big kicker here. Typically, those interviews will need to be transcribed. And all those spoken words need to get written down. To get a professional transcriber to transcribe a 1 hour interview, take them 4 hours. A non-professional transcriber could take around 8 hours. So if your research assistant were doing the transcribing, assuming they aren't a professional transcriber, which, by the way, is quite a skilled job, requires specialist equipment, it would cost you around $500 per interview to get your research assistant to do that transcribing. Get it done professionally actually works out cheaper, around $250, thereabouts, per interview. So if you go with that cheaper option, employing a professional transcriber, you're now up to around $7,500 to around $9,000 for that data collection with 20 participants. So the cost is creeping up, becomes more and more expensive. And the big expense is the transcription. But that's with relatively clean audio. Audio that's well recorded, where the person's voice is nice and clear. More often than not, the recording will be poor. And that's because the person doing the interviewing is typically the person who does the recording, and usually they have had absolutely no training in how to record audio other than just pressing the record button on whatever machine they're using. But sound recording is actually really difficult. It's really difficult to record sound well, particularly dialogue. And that's why we have a profession called sound engineer. It's actually quite a skill. So when you have someone who's not skilled at recording audio, you usually get fairly poor audio. And when you get poor quality audio, that increases the cost of transcription. Usually from $250 per interview to around $300 per interview. So it's costly. And that's just for the data collection. It doesn't include analysis, doesn't include the time spent reporting and writing reports and so on. So it gets expensive really quickly. But the most important thing, the most expensive thing, not the most important, most expensive, is that transcribing. But things are changing.
Completely different pictures.
And they're changing quite slowly, but they are changing because of this thing called auto-transcription. You might be familiar with it. You know, computer programs that translate speech to text automatically. You see this technology cropping up everywhere. You might have something like this on your phone. It's now integrated in popular word processing packages like the Dictate tool in Microsoft Word. But if you've ever used those tools, you'll find they aren't wholly accurate, even when your voice recording is clear. You know, even if you're speaking using a headset with a microphone right close to your mouth, and if you're in a quiet office, even when the quality's reasonably good, the software doesn't always work in the way you want it to work. It gets even worse if the audio is poor. But also if you've got an accent that the software is unfamiliar with, it can be really difficult to get this software to work, to be accurate. And it can be a real disaster using this software. If you've got any type of background noise is the real problem. It can make it almost impossible to get proper transcription done using computer software. Try using voice recognition programs that we have with Google, Amazon. If you've got one of those Google Homes or Amazon Echoes, I have to be careful not to say the trigger word. If you've got one of those in your home, see how easy it is for it to recognize what you're saying when you've got the TV on in the background. I'm sure you've been disappointed by these gadgets. I've been disappointed. Maybe it's my accent, but it doesn't always work. That's because the software, and by the way, Google and Amazon use about the best software because they've got the best data, and it's pretty cutting edge stuff that they have, and it's still a bit pants. The problem is that more and more people are expecting that voice recognition software can be used for transcription, to save on all of those costs. Otter AI is a popular one that's being used in research for people doing transcription. But these things have really high error rates. The transcriptions that these programs produce need careful checking. And it needs to be careful checking because the software tries to find a word that fits with what's being said. If it has trouble recognizing a word, well, the software doesn't know. It just hears stuff and reproduces it, turns it into text. But what the problem is that the software doesn't know when it's making an error, and it tries not to make an error by making the transcript grammatically correct and to get all the syntax correct. And that makes it difficult spotting the errors because it's not like spotting a grammatical error. It's spotting the wrong word being used, even though the word makes sense in the sentence. Does that make sense? So it makes it difficult to spot because the nature of these programs are desperately trying to string together sentences that make sense. And I'll give you an example. So I've been working on a project here in Queensland about the flood events. And we're doing interviews, and we got Otter AI to do our transcription for us. We thought that would save us a lot of time and money. Turned out it didn't save us a lot of time. It saved the funder a lot of money because we ended up having to do all of the transcription kind of unpaid in some ways. In those interviews, people talked about how they'd become more sensitive to the sound of rain after they'd gone through that major flood event. Otter AI transcribed the word sensitive as sensual, and that gave the text a whole different meaning. And we could spot it because we knew that we were in the interviews and we knew that people weren't talking about getting turned on by the sound of rain. But if someone hadn't been in those interviews, hadn't maybe been as familiar with the topic as we were, then they might have thought that people were finding some sort of erotic experience in the sound of rain. Anyway, so it can be a bit of a disaster. So the software doesn't actually save you that much time. Doesn't save you the sort of time you'd imagine. Actually, the time that you save from manually transcribing can be really marginal. And that's because you have to check the transcripts really carefully, the transcripts that these programs produce. The problem is the expectations are quite high about what this software can do, particularly among funders, increasingly now among funders, but also research teams. Kind of, unless they've got experience with this stuff, they think, oh, we just get auto-transcription. That will solve all of our problems. We can come in and bid for this funding and have a lower bid and hopefully be able to, win the money, get the money, because we've pitched under the time. Anyway, it's becoming increasingly common for people to think that this stuff can solve our major problem in qualitative research, which is time and expense. The people who hold these high expectations, they're often the marketing people behind the software. You know, they tell us that these things can do magical stuff, save us all this time, when really it doesn't at the moment. But as the high expectations also come from people who don't have the technical knowledge to know that auto-transcription is not as good as you think it is. And things like artificial intelligence is still quite dumb.
Completely different pictures.
Now, given how expensive it is, it's surprising that few people really ask why we're bothering to do this transcription stuff in the first place. Now, this is quite interesting. I find it interesting. I hope you do. Because it looks like it's partly, perhaps this is a big part of it, partly a hangover from the days when we only had analog recordings made with old tape machines using magnetic tape. And that media was quite fragile stuff. The tape was a bit unreliable. The tape could unwind, get tangled, it could break. And so you had to be careful about using it. You have to be careful about play, stop. And when you're transcribing from a tape or from any recording, you play and then you pause, play, pause, typically. And speed it up, slow it down. And that puts a strain on the tape. But also you can't easily jump between different parts of the recording. You have to hit fast forward and then wait until you get to that point in the tape that you're looking for. Nothing like digital, you can just move around instantaneously, and you moving around the recording isn't going to corrupt the recording. It's a lot more reliable and easier to use. But our reliance on transcription might be because in the old days, we just couldn't do analysis from tape because it was just too onerous. So it might be we just haven't caught up with the digital age. Another reason, this is a bigger reason, is it's a deeper one, is that transcription might be favoured because of the culture we're in. We're in a Western culture. We've got a tradition of written history rather than oral history. We just tend to see things that are written down as having greater value than things that are only spoken. And there is more truth that's assumed about the written word than the spoken word. That's why when you you have a contract, you have to sign the contract. It has to be a written contract rather than just a verbal agreement. Verbal agreements are seen as weaker than written agreements. That's not true in other cultures. For example, First Nations cultures, also some Eastern cultures and Islamic cultures. There can be in some of these cultures more of a tradition of an oral history where knowledge is passed down through oral rather than written communication. Now, let's not go down that rabbit hole. Let's get back on track and think, how do you navigate all of this problem around qualitative research being so time intensive and particularly around the transcription part of it.
Completely different pictures.
Well, one thing you can do is future-proof your project, which means that whether you're going to use human transcription or auto-transcription, or not use any form of transcription at all, but just do analysis directly from the recording, is that you should focus on the quality of the audio that you record. So you should budget in for good quality audio and also get yourself some training in audio production. And that's because if you record poor quality audio, it causes a huge time blowout when it comes to transcribing, but also makes auto-transcription unreliable, and also it can make just doing analysis straight from a recording difficult. Put simply, if you can't hear what someone is saying, you don't have data. And it's quite stunning how little attention is paid to the process of recording an interview. You know, it's the equivalent for a quantitative researcher working with a smudged or out of focus spreadsheet. You know, they can't read all the numbers on their spreadsheet. That'd be bonkers. You think someone, this is crazy. I can't work with a spreadsheet like this. You know, get me a better monitor or get me a better printout. You know, you wouldn't be able to see your data. And it's the same thing for audio recording. You can't hear what someone's saying. You don't have data. Now, there are a number of things you can do when you're recording audio, having your microphone close as possible to the speaker, using a shock mount, things, those weird things. Oh, am I going to be able to show you this? Get this in. Oh, no. My studio falls apart. You know, these things. These are called shock mounts because that just suspends the microphone. I'm not using this microphone. That would be a complete audio disaster if I was banging that around. So getting the proper equipment, you can actually do this quite simply. These shock mounts, inviting disaster. These are so that if you bang the microphone, it doesn't get picked up in the shock mount because you've got these bits of elastic that absorb the sound of this thing getting banged. And you don't need anything as elaborate as that for your interview, but you need something equivalent. And there's this little trick, I'll tell you. I know that we've gone on a bit long. Oh gosh, I need to get on. So there's this little trick. If you're recording on your phone, or you've got another type of digital audio recorder, and you're in an interview and there's a table in front of you and a participant, stick your phone or your recording device on a jumper or a cushion or something soft, a bit of fabric.
Yeah, I find it very...
So don't put it directly onto the table. And that works as a shock absorber. You'll be surprised how often people put their phone down on a table and then they'll do the interview and then they'll listen back to the recording and all they can hear is... Yeah, like boom, boom, boom. What am I doing? Tell me, good audio. I'm messing up my audio. All you can hear is this thump, 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 and you can't hear what the person's saying. And having that shock absorber, which is just your jumper on the table, just absorbs that sound. People aren't aware that, you know, they're talking away and they're kicking at the table. And they don't know they're doing it, but they're doing it. Anyway, let's not go down that rabbit hole about getting good quality audio. We're going to do that in level 3, actually, because not only is it a good thing to prepare for when you're planning a project, making sure you can record good quality audio, it's a good thing to know about as a qualitative interviewer. Okay, so we'll talk about that in level 3, because level 3, you're going to be doing an individual interview and recording it. And I assess you on your interview. And if I can't hear you talking because your audio is so bad, you're not going to get many marks. But when we get to level 3, I'll talk you through that. I'll give you all of these handy tips about recording good quality audio. Okay, so I think we should wrap it up there. I went off track and my auto... I'm doing it using a teleprompter. You can't believe this, but I script this stuff. Okay, so just to sum up, as my teleprompter's trying to catch up with me, when you're project planning, do spend time thinking about audio. But there's actually another way of fixing this problem, which is not to use interviewing or to do a different type of interviewing other than individual interviews. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about in the next video. And that's actually going to be the first video for Teaching Week 12. So this is the last video for Teaching Week 11. And in that video, I'm going to talk to you about some of the different types of qualitative method you could use and the pros and cons attached to them, and why we have a problem in psychology about choosing methods, not just choosing qualitative methods, but generally we choose methods for the wrong reason. Okay, so I think that's the end. My script hasn't caught up with me yet, so I'm just going to check. Anything else I'm supposed to say? No, I did it all. So I'll see you in week 12, which will be my next video. So till then, ta-da. Oh my God, I was speaking so long. The sun's gone down. Talk about poor planning in relation to time. I'm so sorry this video went on. Why am I apologizing? These are less than an hour, aren't they? 20 minutes. Hey, you're getting off lightly. I could go on about this for hours, but I won't. Anyway, see you next time.